CEO of Solder Technologies, Derek Peterson. Suffolk County Executive, Steve Bellone. And now, please join me in welcoming the 57th Governor of the great state of New York, Governor Kathy Hochul.
Thank you. And how about a shout out to our great mayor of Patchogue, Mayor Pontieri. Mayor. Well, I am so delighted to be back here once again. The mayor will be speaking as soon as I'm done. He can tell you our stories of our first visits out here. I will admit it was after 5. In fact, it was called, I think, Alive at 5 or Alive After 5. Okay, it was a festival. There were certain things you had to do to participate. You can elaborate on that later, but it was a lot of fun, and so I enjoyed this community tremendously. And I want to thank him for his extraordinary leadership of this community. Leadership does matter. It truly matters who the people elect and who they keep in office, and for us to have had a chance to see in action the impact of one person and his vision on this community is extraordinary. So again, you'll be hearing from him, but ladies and gentlemen, I am so impressed with your mayor, Mayor Paul Pontieri. And someone who is a great friend of mine, someone I've worked with for many, many years, battling everything from hurricanes, storms, COVID, all the challenges that a county official has to face. But Steve Bellone has been that extraordinary leader who just rose up, who never felt the stress, maybe he didn't show the stress, but always that calm, cool, collected person who could walk in a room and say, we've got this. And so for the confidence that you've given all of us through your leadership on behalf of the entire state and certainly the people of Suffolk County, our great county executive, Steve Bellone. Ruth Ann Visnauskas, are you in the crowd? Oh, there you are. You should be in the front row because this woman, maybe you're tired of being on the front line. She just came through her hearing yesterday in the legislature and did very well. And I want to thank her for, again, being that visionary at a time when the state needs people willing to step up and do the right thing. And that is our leader of Housing Community Renewal, Ruth Ann Visnauskas, our leader. New York State's Director of Policy, Micah Lasher, has joined us as well. Micah, where are you? Micah, thank you for coming. We also have a couple speakers you're going to be hearing from. Derek Peterson, you're going to hear about his great company, Solder Technologies, and Tracy Todd Hunter, so I will not spill the beans on what they're going to say. But, you know, this community was recognized by the American Planning Association back in 2019 as one of America's 4 great neighborhoods. I'd like to see 1 through 3 because I don't know how they surpass this community. Because this is an amazing place. We're here in this beautiful YWCA. I just walked to the weight room. Looks kind of intimidating, so I walked right out. But it's a great resource. You know, people coming together, people having a chance to, have a sense of community. And how important is that? And also, to those who just call this community their home, this is quite amazing. This is an amazing place. We just finished a walking tour, reconfirming what I knew about this community, that it had gone through a life cycle. And I know about that because I'm from Western New York, and a lot of our life cycle was in a spiral going down. And that's my childhood. Remember the early days when all the little shops, men's clothing, women's clothing, shoe shops, bookstore were all open. But then the decline became so apparent when the businesses left. The big industry, not unlike Northrop Grumman leaving, it was the Bethlehem steel plant that left, and left my downtown virtually a ghost town in the late 70s and 80s, and boarded up signs, going out of business. It was heartbreaking to see what happened in the community, and I know the same had happened here. The mayor said at the beginning of his term, 50% of the storefronts were vacant space. And that's a hopeless situation, and I guarantee you, just like up where I'm from, right here, people packed up. All my siblings, big Irish Catholic family. I'm the only one left in New York. They all had to leave because they couldn't find a job. And what's important to me is we've turned things around so dramatically that it's not news stories about the jobs leaving, it's about the jobs coming and how positive that is right now. But we have to do certain things to make sure that we meet that demand, because as I walk the downtown, a gentleman ran out of the meat market. What was his name? Your friends of yours? The meat guy. All right. We were walking down the street. Literally, I'm peeking in all the windows. He comes running out and said, Governor, I support your housing plan. 3% growth means more business because people coming here, more people living here, more money for my business. I said, this guy gets it. This guy gets it. He understands. And so we also had a chance to talk to Larry and Lori, the owners of the Colony Shop. What a gem that is. It was actually, turns out to be, what was their 75th anniversary today? 75th? 77th anniversary today? Well, I did my part. I just whipped out my credit card. I have a lot more in the truck, but I thought this was adorable for my new grandbaby. So. Great shop. I'll go back as soon as I'm done here. We stopped and saw Dave Bustamante at Gallo. What a great restaurant that is as well. I mean, just a sense of community. He was so proud of how he had hung on. We talked about his loss of his father and his uncle during the pandemic, but he persevered and he continued on. And so I thank them for just being part of the soul of a community. And the fact that the workers who work for him could literally live in this community and walk to work. You don't need a car. That's the beauty of communities like this. So we've had a chance to walk past many of the housing developments, completely mixed use. You have everything from market rate to supportive housing, artist housing, everything that you need, because guess what? Communities like this have an incredible asset as we waited for the train to go by. The fact that you have access 1 hour from here to Grand Central Station is extraordinary. And that just adds to the quality of life, the opportunity for people to work elsewhere but live here, or to live there and work here, the reverse commuting opportunities. And so having the Long Island Railroad here is something that is just a jewel. And it's going to make more dynamic businesses and having walkable communities and all this. And it's no wonder that people consider this to be such an up-and-coming community. Young people are flocking here. The average age, most of this area is about 45. I think it's about 36 years old here, because young families are coming here. Young tech entrepreneurs, young people with a vision, young artists are congregating to this community because it's so alive. And that's why we want to continue making this part of our state more affordable, more livable, and certainly more safe. And this is a shining example of the kind of communities that people are looking for, they're thirsting for. And we have so many more jobs coming here. You've heard me talk about this for years. We have Kevin Law here. Kevin and I knew each other many, many years working together, and now he's the chairman of Empire State Development. And we talked about all the new industries that are coming here to replace the old legacy businesses, what we're doing with life sciences and biosciences and offshore wind and all the opportunities for great jobs to be created here. And it's unlimited. You know, we just invested last year, and I know Chuck Levine is here and Phil Ramos. I want to thank them for their leadership here. Please stand up. You know, making sure that we had money for Long Island. They said, we don't want to leave the budget process until we deliver at least $350 million for Long Island, and you delivered. And because of that, we've been able to commit more projects, again, that'll be creating more jobs right here. The Long Island Investment Fund, $56 million is already committed to Feinstein Institute, Farmingdale, Stony Brook, to invest in them, because that's where we're creating the jobs. And I see John nodding his head, the president of Farmingdale, and thank you for putting those projects out there in front of us so we can seize upon them. And a new accelerator program, $50 million, and drawing more opportunities with a venture capital competition and workforce. So I'm just saying all these is just a broad picture to paint that we have unlimited potential here on Long Island for more growth. People want to be here. The schools are fantastic. And yet too many feel shut out. Patchogue shows what real success looks like. It can feel tangible. People walk down the streets. That didn't just happen. If we just let life go by without stepping up and saying people need to live here, they have to have a place to live, this would be the ghost town that it started to be. It truly would. And you turn the trajectory of that around. And that's what I want to point to, how we can upgrade our communities. Because if you don't grow, you stagnate. When you stagnate, you die. And that's what can happen in communities that don't embrace the opportunity to say, guess what? People want to be here. The employers want to be here. Businesses want to come here. But where are the employees going to live? We've created so many more jobs than ever before, but we've not kept pace with building the housing. And communities large and small all have a capacity to just grow a little bit more. Some want to grow big, some want to keep their small character, I understand that, and they should. But we have to open up the doors so we can get people to be able to live here. And you think about the price of housing here. Newsday on the cover, housing up 66% in the past 10 years. To everyone fortunate enough to own a house on Long Island, you're probably not going to go up to a bigger one. You're probably going to have to stay right there. There's no mobility. You will not be able to afford, you wouldn't be able to afford the house you're living in right now if you had it all over again. And you know what that means? That your kids can't afford to live in the same neighborhood. Your own kids will never be able to grow up around you, someday grandparents. And on the other end of life spectrum, senior citizens, the grandparents, who want to stay in the community, maybe downsize to a townhouse or a little apartment. If the housing is not there, they can't afford it, they're stuck as well, and they might go to a cheaper state altogether. And so we know that New Yorkers, half of all New Yorkers are what they call cost burdened. And we talk about affordability all the time. I live and breathe the issue of affordability, whatever I can do as governor to make New York State more affordable. When you look at your monthly bills, your biggest bill is either your rent or your mortgage, right? Those are the ones, top of the list. In order to have more affordability in a state where more than 50% of people spend 30% or more on their rent or mortgage, the second highest in the nation, you know, we have to turn that dynamic around. And so it's real basic economics. You have high demand, but low supply, the price goes up. But if you have more supply to meet the demand, the price goes down. That's all we're talking about, giving people the chance to live in their homes, build capital, build wealth by buying that first little condo, and eventually you can progress through life. I saw my own family do that. My parents started out living in a trailer park. So my brother was born there. Rumor is he used to sleep in the top drawer. It was tiny, but I'm not sure that's true. I wasn't there. I came along 9 months later. And they moved into a little 2-bedroom flat above an apartment right near the steel plant where my dad worked. And they thought that was great. You know, wow, all this space for 2 babies, amazing. And then when more kids came along, there was a Cape Cod, one of those little Sears kid houses. And then when there were 6 kids, we got a bigger house, and I was able to share an attic with 2 brothers. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. But we survived. We didn't have heat up there. We didn't have cool up there, you know, air conditioning, but, you know, it was a big family. You just did what you did. We thought we lived a good life, and we were living a good life. We had a home. My parents bought a home. That was everything to us. And then as life went on, my parents were able to upgrade as their costs went down. We all left home. So I could see through my own family story what that means to people. And I want that same opportunity available to everyone. That's what I'm focused on with this plan. And people are moving out of our state, not that they don't love New York, but they just can't afford it anymore. And I want to stop that trend before it becomes out of control. And we can. The issue is we can. But look what's happening in neighboring states. Who are we competing with? New Jersey. New Jersey has built 4 to 5 times more housing in the same time frame per capita than we have here on Long Island. So your kids may be growing up in New Jersey, whether they want to or not, because they want to stay in this region. And these are not just statistics. There's a story, young adults who aren't coming here. And I know that we can do so much better, whether it's, like I said, our seniors, our business owners like Derek, who you'll hear from in a couple of minutes, all struggling to be able to live here. But I'm committed to fixing this. I know it's not easy, but I don't do easy. I do what's right. And that's why, in my budget, I proposed a brand new New York Housing Compact. I propose that New York State has the capacity and the will to build over 800,000 new housing units over the next decade. And that'll, good. It's ambitious, but I know we can reach it together. And we set home creation targets for cities, towns, villages that are realistic and achievable. And if you don't think so, we'll talk about it and we'll show you how. And local leaders are driving this process to ensure that housing keeps pace with the demand of the employers and the young people, and people want to come here. We have to meet that demand. And communities will have all the flexibility they want. And what do I know about this? I spent 14 years on a town board. Every single Monday night, we were reviewing housing plans and economic development plans. I worked with the town board, the planning board, the zoning board, the traffic safety board. We did seeker, we did environmental reviews. I know what this is all about. I've lived it. I know all the ways that a town can say yes to a project, and I know all the ways they can say no to a project. And so we want communities to have the flexibility. A master plan, we devised our master plan upgrade, first time in 20 years while I was there. Said commercial here, retail here, open space, farmland here, and then our little villages, and then we had room for housing. And we had to have, to execute our new housing, we had to have more sewers. We didn't have the money for that, so that stymied some of our growth. We also want people to repurpose some of the abandoned buildings. You know, look how much life has changed and people stopped going to malls. They're sitting in their house clicking for the purchases they would have made walking through a mall. It's sad, but I can't change that right now. That's the reality. So what are we going to do with these malls and strip plazas? They deteriorate, they decline, they affect the psychology of a community if you don't do something positive with them. That's what we're talking about. Move them toward multifamily units. We'll put incentives on the table, but municipalities, you can do whatever you want in terms of just creating some growth. And yes, people say, why? Because the status quo has not worked. I'm not the one who comes to Long Island every week and hears how expensive it is. The people living here know this. They know that housing is too expensive, it is too scarce. You cannot find an apartment, you cannot find a home. You cannot find anything you can afford anymore. And that is a crisis. So if we had kept pace with other states, other regions, Washington, D.C., Philadelphia, Boston, they're all growing 2, 3, 4 times higher than we have. We wouldn't have to be having this conversation. It would have happened organically. But it didn't. We can wait forever, hope it changes, or we can meet the demand of employers and people who want us to build more houses. And that's what we're talking about. One way to focus on this is transit-oriented development. This should not make anyone afraid, because obviously, when a train came through your community, it increased property values, the value of the community, access to people to good-paying jobs. It changed people's lives over 100 years ago when the Long Island Railroad first came through here. But why aren't we capitalizing on the fact that the land around many of these stations, at the end of the day, when people are done parking in a parking lot, there's like tumbleweed blowing through it. It's worthless. Just imagine if that land had first floor retail on it. Next couple floors, parking levels, so you could double, triple the parking in a downtown area so people aren't parking on the side streets. And then put in all levels of housing. It doesn't even have to be that high. You can do this. It just takes creativity. And I guarantee there will not be a single empty unit, whether it's condos, market rate condos, whether you put in townhouses there, whether you put in housing that's affordable for people. There is such demand for this. And I've seen fabulous examples of that right here on Long Island. I brag about what you've done here in places like Patchogue and Ronkonkoma, Wyandanch. And this railroad, whether it's Westbury, Wyandanch, we've seen how this has been transformed. We're going to keep making the investments. And I do encourage you to take the ride down to Grand Central Madison, because it is beautiful. The artwork, get ready for a nice long escalator ride. It's about 1.35 minutes. Someone once said to me, "What are people supposed to do while they're waiting so long on that escalator?" I said, "They should probably meditate." Just calm down. Think about how wonderful life is. Don't know that New Yorkers can do that very easily, but I'm going to still suggest that. But I want to thank all the leaders on Long Island who have made this happen. You have given us the examples. You've broken through. You did it before your time, before other people were saying this is a demand. You saw the future needs and you met them. That's why places like Patchogue are so vibrant and so desirable. This is the model we're talking about. And there is no one-size-fits-all approach. And I also mentioned, I know there's need for infrastructure. I get it. If you want to build housing, sometimes in Long Island you need a lot more sewers. I'm not sure why no one thought to build sewers a long time ago, but Long Island needs sewers. The county executive's been trying and trying and trying. And most parts of our state don't even think about it. Of course it's sewered. It's something we take for granted. But Long Island's special. We need to help you with the sewers. And so that is my commitment, to make this become a reality, to make this a reality. We have $250 million on the table right now. Now, some will say that's not enough. Okay, help me spend it, and I'll prove to me that you need more. That's what I say. Bring me the projects. Show us what you want to do. Show us the growth pattern. I'll make sure the infrastructure works for you. And if we run out of money, that means the process is working, and we'll get you some more. But first, let's start doing it. Let's just start moving. And for smaller communities that don't have big planning departments, I had a lot of small towns around me growing up, we'll help you out. We're putting $20 million, and if we need more, we'll put more behind the planning assistance funds to help you see the possibilities behind that old warehouse or that abandoned strip mall or that parking lot. What can you do with the parking lot? And we're not talking about changing the character of communities, because I ran for town board. I've had 14 elections. It's a lot. And every time I talked about protecting the quality of life in my community, but it wasn't just protecting what we had, it was also improving it. That's the difference. You can protect and keep it the way it is, or you can say how we make it even better. So we're not talking about changing the character of communities either. And I know that's so important, because that's our identity. And that's something we uniquely have here in New York State, especially here on Long Island. So I'm excited about this New York Housing Compact. I really am. I'm energized by it. I will speak to anybody, anytime about it. And I have a great team that's committed to this, but I need to grow our army. And I'm looking at a room full of people who are thought leaders, who have voices that people listen to. I need you to be out there overcoming people's fears and hesitation and saying, my God, a few years from now, 5 years, 10 years from now, people say, New York State, we didn't just catch up, we just exceeded. We surpassed everybody else because we finally gave people affordable way of life here in New York, starting with their housing. So we're here to support and get this moving. But I also know that one of the reasons people want to be here is we have outstanding schools. Congratulations to all the leaders of our schools here. They are exceptional. But we also know that as I come out to Long Island, I joke about the fact that we're always talking about potholes. I took care of your potholes, you know that, right? Okay, all right. If you see a pothole, give me a call. But I think I wiped out about 500,000 of them last summer. We talk about property taxes as well, right? Well, having done my local budgets for 14 years, I know that the pie chart shows that the majority of your property taxes are school taxes. So we allocated this year the largest investment in school aid in the history of our state, $34.5 billion, on top of last year's record amount. So that's on top of last year. So that's the largest school aid increase ever. Now, that is $4.8 billion more for Long Island, more for Long Island, and an increase of $775 million for $75 million in our foundation aid as well, upwards of 19% increase. What do you do with a 19% increase? I have an idea for you. We talk about the cost of property taxes. I think this is an opportunity for our schools to meet their needs, schools to invest in programs I think are so important, like mental health services for our kids who are still struggling. But school districts, I'm giving you the opportunity to make you real popular in your communities by taking this opportunity to take this money and reduce the tax burden on the people who live in your community. So let's start focusing on. So some already followed last year. Westbury, William Floyd, they cut their school taxes last year because we gave them so much, great support there. And I also expect others to follow suit this year. So people want to live in an affordable community, but they also want to live in a safe community. And I know this. This is an issue that affects so many people. If you are anxious about your safety, your kids' safety when they go off to school, or saying goodbye to your spouse or partner on their way to work, you just don't have the peace of mind you deserve. So that's why, since I took office a year and a half ago, public safety has been my #1 priority. And I have worked tirelessly to drive down, especially the violent crime rates and this crime surge that was all across the country. And someday sociologists will have to help us figure out why. What happened during that pandemic, that time of isolation and time of despair, time of tremendous loss, how that resulted in a nationwide spike in all kinds of crimes. So I don't know that answer, but I do know that there have been families affected here on Long Island in particular because of gun violence. We have incredible individuals here who stood up after losses in their own families. Moms Demand Action are really strong here as well. And so we knew we had to strengthen our gun laws. I thank the legislature for teaming up with us on this. We had a hands-on approach, and we're starting to see the impact of this. But I know as a government, I can't just tell the localities to do more without helping fund that. So we're putting in our budget $337 million to help reduce and prevent gun violence. That's an increase. That's an increase of over $110 million from last year in the first place. And we're talking about services for young people, diversion programs, opportunities for them to get a summer job, a job during the school year, help them find a better path so they don't fall prey to gun violence on the streets. We have to give them alternatives. But also I want to make sure that we're taking another look at our bail laws and giving judges the clarity they need, because right now there's an inconsistency in our bail laws. And there's confusion as to what judges should do, particularly when it comes to violent, serious offenses and for repeat offenders. That is just common sense. I want to get this done in my budget. I need your support. And I know we can get there. I feel confident we can get there. But also, we think about the challenges facing communities. I mentioned mental health a few times. We have to stabilize this whole phenomenon and remove the stigma for people to get care. But if we don't have the ability to provide that care, then it's all just talk. That's why I've talked about $1 billion. $1 billion, a record investment, largest commitment in our history, to make sure that we deal with everything from adding more beds to supportive services to whatever people need, so we can have that complete continuum of care so they don't fall prey to having to live on the streets or have a different life altogether. We can take care of people. So I'm declaring that the end of ignoring the needs of mental health for our residents is finally over. So our $1 billion is going to help transform this. So I put a lot on the table for you. It's actually shorter than a lot of the other ones I give. I didn't go through how many potholes I fixed and everything, but I did want to focus on housing here, because I know if we can win the hearts and minds of people here on Long Island and break down the fear and the narrative that gets created and spun out of control that people all start believing in, which is not the truth about what our objectives are. This is about making Long Island be the best it can be, because we've come a long way. We've been through a lot together. We've seen the downward trends. We've seen the beginnings of a comeback. But that comeback will never be complete if we don't provide housing that people can afford. And that, to me, is the greatest challenge facing us right now, the only thing holding us back here on Long Island. And I know we can get through this. I am so confident of this. All I know is that, from my opinion, doing nothing is not an option. So thank you. Thank you for being part of this journey. Hopefully in the next few weeks, part of a success, part of a legacy that we'll be creating. Well, others will look at us as the model of what courageous leadership looks like, and we will break through any barriers that come before us. So thank you, everyone. And with that, I'd like to introduce our mayor, Paul Pontieri. Thank you.
I'd like to thank the governor for coming to the village of Patchogue. Her remarks are very clear and very to the point. When I first became mayor, much of what she said is how Patchogue grew. One of the things that I knew for us to get to where we wanted to be is about putting feet on the street, as I always call it, putting people onto Main Street and redefining who we are as a community. We had been, up until the mid-'70s, the mall of Long Island. We had everything. We had 2 jewelry stores, a furrier, restaurants, you name it, we had it. 3 movie theaters. And then the malls came. Sunrise Highway came. Downtown changed. And it went to what it was when I came in, well, what it was in the middle 90s. And 50% vacancy by square footage. You could walk down Main Street at night and you were by yourself. We had a parking problem. We had so many empty parking spaces. We have a parking problem now. We don't have enough empty spaces. But what I knew was that businesses don't come unless there are people there. I also knew, in my mind, I grew up in Patchogue. I grew up 3 blocks from here. I'm one of those guys that never left home. And I didn't leave home because I loved the community I was born and raised in. I had family here. Get on a bicycle, I could ride to my grandmother's house, Aunt Peg's, Uncle Mike's, Uncle Buster. I think I won my first election because I got 55 first cousins and a whole bunch of aunts and uncles, you know. But one of the things when I took this job is I wasn't smart enough to know what we weren't supposed to be able to do. You're not supposed to be able to build 75-foot buildings on main streets. You weren't supposed to be able to put housing on Main Street. Your downtowns were for stores. You weren't supposed to turn your community around and go from the retail to the restaurants. So I just kind of did whatever I thought was a good idea. Sort of what the governor's talking about. She's talking about what she thinks is a good idea. And I think we have to follow some of that idea. And one of the things, and I'll step over here in a second, one of the things that people forget about growth, it's about the partners you have. And I look at 2 of them right there, New York State and the county. We're lucky enough, and you talk about, why didn't Long Island think about putting in a sewer plant? We put in a sewer plant in 1907. Of course, then it was gravity feed, flush it, and it probably went to the bay. You know, so. And she also asked me, as we're walking, have we ever applied for the DRI, the Downtown Revitalization Initiative? We did once, didn't get it. But whenever I've asked the county or the state for support, like this past year, $7.7 million from the REDC to upgrade our sewer plant. We have another 3.5 coming. And I think, and Mr. Law, Kevin Law and I have discussed it any number of times. One of the reasons I think we got it is, one of the things that we said is we want to expand our plant by 400,000 gallons. 200,000 will stay within the village, and 200,000 are committed to go outside the village. That, therefore, allowing the communities to our east and our west to take care of their needs, to hopefully create some of the housing that we talk about, and not have an excuse not to. All they need to do at that point in time is run the line. So it's the partners you have. Art space and affordable housing. Art space is 45 affordable units, 100% affordable. Art space, you take a walkway that takes you to Main Street, takes you to the theater. Art space happens because of the state's commitment to affordable housing. When you get to the theater, we have an 1,100-seat theater. For those that have been in it, it's been restored. The mayor in '96, Steve Keegan, was able to get 4 members of the community to put money together to purchase it. But now we've connected the performing arts with the fine arts. And that theater's there because, again, the partners we had, and the fact I'm not afraid to ask for money. I ask for it, and they think I know what I'm doing, and I get it sometimes. In fact, I get it all the time. And I've been very fortunate. And this village has been very fortunate. The partners we have, we make decisions internally ourselves about how we want to do things. We're not afraid to make decisions. I'm a believer on one other comment. When it comes to density, everybody talks about density, density, density. How can you put so many units here there? Density is the product of design. Density, people don't care about density if what they see they like. Copper Beach is 80 units on 5 acres, 16 per acre. The Tritech New Village is 291 units. We never talk about that. We talk about what's it going to look like, what's it going to feel like, and how do we become a better place because of it? So within your communities, they start talking about projects. Do what I do. We have across the street, there's a vacant property across the street, and I had some people come in to make a presentation. I have a stack of books written by Hans Hankey of pictures of the village over the last 100 years. I give it to them like I gave to Bob Coughlin when Tritech came in. I said, before you think you know who we are, this is who we are. Because the community reacts and respects those kinds of things. So housing development isn't tough if you take a perspective of that you live in a community and make it be what the community wants to be. You know, Copper Beach, Village Walk. We have 750 new units in the village built over the last 15 years, 16 years. But because we did it because of the partners we have. But that being said, one of my partners who supports the things that we do and how we do them is County Executive Steve Malone.
Thank you very much, Mayor, and he really has done an extraordinary job here. I have to tell you, we did do a tour, as the governor mentioned, and all of that happened that the governor described. She bought a ton of stuff in the colony shop. That was just a little tiny bit of what she bought. But we did go on that tour, and we got to see the investments in art and historic preservation. But at the end of the day, the extraordinary revitalization that has occurred here in downtown Patchogue has been driven by the housing that has been built under the leadership of Mayor Paul Pontieri. So, Mayor, thank you very much. And to all who have supported that, like the Long Island Housing Partnership, Peter Elkowitz, chaired by, of course, Kevin Law. I have the privilege of introducing some of the electeds who are here. I want to do that now. You've already heard our two great assembly members, our Deputy Speaker Phil Ramos and Chuck Levine. Thank you for your leadership in Albany. It's so critical to us. My colleagues in the Suffolk County Legislature who are here, first of all, our leader, Minority Leader, Jason Richburg, County Legislator. Thank you, Jason. Legislator Sarah Anker. Legislator Sam Gonzalez, and Legislator Bridget Fleming. Also, two of our town supervisors, and before I did this job for the last 12 years, I was a town supervisor for 10 years. I understand this issue very well. I want to thank them for being here, thank them for their great work. The supervisor of the town of East Hampton, Peter Van Scoyoc. And the supervisor of the town of Riverhead, Yvette Aguiar. Of course, we're at the YMCA. I want to thank Ann Brigas and all the YMCA staff and team. You heard the Regional Economic Development Council, President John Nainer, also our co-chair Linda Arman. Thank you very much. Matt Cohen from the Long Island Association, all of the leaders here. John Durso, of course, Long Island Federation of Labor. Thank you for your leadership. And that is really the story of the day here. It is leadership. And that is what the governor is providing on an issue that is of the utmost importance to the future of this region. Governor Hochul described it exactly right when she talked about the potential that we have here on Long Island. We know what that potential is. The governor knows it because she's practically here every other day and has been for years. She understands Long Island. Our potential is unlimited, and in large part, that's due to the investments that have been made here by the state, by the governor, in transportation, in innovation, into our innovation assets here. The one issue that has the potential to undermine our economic growth that is essential to our families and to our communities, that is quite honestly essential to sustaining the property values here in this region and to holding in check property taxes in this region. That one issue is building the housing that we need in this region. And I want to thank the governor for her leadership on this issue, as she has done on so many other issues, putting forward a plan that sets the goals of what we need to accomplish here and across the state, that gives municipalities the freedom and the space to accomplish it in the way that they need to do it in their local communities, and then providing the resources and support to help make it happen. That's a plan that can work. That's a plan that will work. And I can't emphasize enough how important this issue, this housing issue, is to our future here on Long Island. And Governor, thank you very much for your leadership here, and we're going to continue to work with you to make this happen. Thank you very much, Governor. With that, I have the privilege to introduce one of our great business leaders, and really an individual who's overcome and accomplished so much in his life, somebody we worked with in Wyandanch. The governor mentioned the Wyandanch Rising Project, which I began as a town supervisor back in 2003. He was there working with us in the Earn and Learn program, helping young high school students in Wyandanch achieve their potential. Please welcome Derek Peterson, Soda Technologies.
Wow, it's a great privilege to be here. I would normally find myself speaking in front of a high-tech conference, so it's sort of a different audience here. But if you'd like to learn about IoT and bits and bytes, you can talk to me after. First of all, also, I am a New Yorker. I'm a Long Islander. I was born and raised here. I grew up in Bay Shore, and I'm that kid from around the town, and it's a privilege to be here. And now I run a tech company, a high-tech company called Solder Technologies, and we're keeping our kids safe by the products we create. And I'd like to thank the governor for all she's doing for the housing projects here. See, the New York Housing Compact is a comprehensive and multifaceted proposal to address historic shortages in New York State and build over 800,000 homes here in the next decade. It is designed to empower communities across the state and help New York be the best it can be. The New York Housing Compact is the plan we need for our communities to grow and thrive here, point blank. We need this to happen. Far too long, For far too long, young adults have been leaving Long Island to work in companies in different states, for it's too expensive to live here. In order to preserve the talent and economic potential of the next generation, we need to invest in keeping our young professionals here on Long Island. As our executive, my friend now, Steve Malone, mentioned, I've partnered with Suffolk County and the Workforce Labor Department to create various programs to help young people learn and earn good-paying jobs here on Long Island. They can have a good-paying job, but then they have no place to live, which is another problem. We need our young people to be able to grow up, move out of their parents' basements, to find their own condos, apartments, and housing. So I have an employee who lives in Connecticut right now, and she wants to move back to Long Island. She was born in Long Island, but the problem is she cannot find housing. I have another employee who works for me. She came to me this past February and said, Derek, you know the job you gave me allowed me to pay off all my debt. My next goal now is, how do I buy a house here on Long Island? Can you help me with that? So to that, I applaud our governor for taking and tackling this huge issue. And I honor you for what you're doing right now for New York State. I will continue to do my part, continue to create jobs, and you continue to do your part, and we'll have a wonderful partnership. And next, I would like to introduce you to Tracy Todd Hunter, a Patchogue resident here.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm not an elected official. I am a prodigy of this town here in Patchogue. I used to ride my bicycle right through here. I'll be 61 years old this year. And I used to ride my bicycle through here, through the old lace mill. Behind here, there's the mill pond that's behind here. I used to catch tadpoles in there. My mother used to live right over here on Main Street. My grandmother lived around the corner as a homeowner, one of the first African-American homeowners in Patchogue. She also owned an antique shop in Patchogue. I've worked here from a very young age. I've worked all my life. I started at 9 years old in Our Lady of Mount Carmel Rectory, selling candles and answering the phones. I started college. I couldn't finish. I needed to go to work. So I started at Stony Brook when they first opened. In 1981, I worked in the department and opened up the Department of Urology. And then from there, I worked in the Division of GYN Oncology. And then from there, I moved out on my own from my grandparents, and I lived in a garage where you had to walk in the garage and then go into an apartment that had some type of furnace that was in there that I don't think was very good for me at the time. But eventually, I couldn't afford to live here then on my own. So I moved to the city. You know, salaries are higher in the city. So I started working for Bankers Trust. Some of us probably remember Bankers Trust and Manufacturers Hanover at Ford New York Plaza. I've been blessed to have people in my life that afforded me opportunities. So when I felt that I wanted to come back and live on Long Island, I went back and I started working for the chair of the Department of Surgery at Stony Brook. I helped open the breast care center, the Carol Baldwin Breast Care Center, locally, and then I worked in the Long Island High-Tech Incubator next door. I worked for an astronaut, a retired astronaut, Lieutenant General Thomas Stafford, who actually flew the reconnaissance flights to the moon for the astronauts that went there after to land on the moon. So then when I was deciding, when that company closed, because he discovered Viatronics. Viatronics was a virtual colonoscopy computer system that was less invasive as opposed to having the procedure done. So then I met Dr. James Hayward, who asked me to work for him. And one day, I was his administrator. One day in the office, I had a stroke. With that being said, I had to go on disability. Now, I thought it was going to be a short thing, but it wasn't. And at that time, I eventually got better, but I couldn't return to work. So I had to go on. Well, actually, the good thing about it is that we had a company called BASF that bought my boss's company, and they have a European model of human resources that's different than the United States, whereas they pay their employees for full pay for a length of time while they're sick. They pay your full benefits and everything else, even though we have North American, but they're based in Europe. So when that stopped, my complete salary changed, and I could no longer afford to live on Long Island. So I picked a spot. A friend of mine had moved to Virginia, and then I moved to Virginia on my own, and I stayed there, and I got sick again, and I would have to come up to Patchogue, and I would see this building going up, and I was like, oh, I wonder what that is. And it was Art Space. And I researched it, put my name in, and I actually won the lottery to move in there. So as a seasoned person in age now, I feel blessed. Thank you, Mayor Panieri, for doing that and creating that opportunity for many of us that are in there. And I live in affordable housing. And I'm not embarrassed to say it, because let me tell you something, if I did not live there, I would not be here on Long Island. And I do my part by volunteering and showcasing events and exhibitions and things of that nature to keep myself busy and also to get people involved in community as well. And what the mayor has done in this town, because like I said, I was born here, it's just amazing, and I'm thankful to you, and congratulations, and also our Suffolk County executive. We're lucky enough that our elected officials work together in this town, and we reap the benefits of that. So our younger people, they need affordable housings. Our seniors need affordable housings. People with disabilities, they need affordable housing. Veterans need affordable housing, and there's people out there that need affordable housing. You never know what can happen in your life. One day you can be up here, and the next day you can be, not that there's anything bad with that, but a slight salary change can change your life. So I am grateful, and I thank you, Governor, for all that you contribute, and thank you very much for listening to me and listening to my story.